Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, joined today by me, myself, and I, and my handwritten notes. You know what, it's been that long since the UFC event that I have handwritten notes. We're coming off a week off of UFC, a nice time to relax, but it's been long enough. Let's get back in there, let's make some money, let's take down this 14 fight slate. Yes, I said it, 14 fights this weekend, lacking a bit of name value, but do not get me wrong. I have a ton of excitement for this one. I think there's gonna be a lot of fun fights and maybe some good finishes, but definitely a lot of good scoring DraftKings opportunities today. Now, before we get any further into this, I've seen a couple comments about the music. I'm gonna have this turned down really low, but I want you guys to tell me what you like. And at the end of the day, these videos are for you. They're not for me. They're to help you guys make money and take down some DraftKings slates. So I wanna make them as enjoyable as possible. If that's without music, fine, that makes the job easier for me, but I just try to make it as fun as possible. So let me know down below what you think is best for that. So we're just gonna roll with this one here. Music or not, I'm spitting facts. I'm letting you know what my model says, what my prediction says, what my tape study says, and letting you know how I'm targeting this slate. Now getting into the picks, UFCVegas56, Volkov versus Rozenstruik, another heavyweight main event, and honestly one that you don't necessarily need too much ownership as well. Now, of course, Rozenstruik's always light for the KO finish. He always scores very well in those wins because he does get those early finishes, a lot of power in his hands, but I am on the Volkov side here. I do think he outpoints him from range, kickboxing, maybe even wrestling if he has to. I know Rozenstruik has to struggle on the ground, so I do think Volkov is the rightful favorite. However, I don't know how much ownership I'm going to get, especially with those 14 fight slates. And at 8.6K, if he's just going to win a slower type decision like a Rozenstruik versus Gain, I don't see it scoring necessarily that well. We know that Volkov is very happy to kickbox from the outside and point fight, and I think in doing so, he does win. In GPP, give me Rozenstruik because he does have that touch of death power, but honestly, not one I'm overly fond of in targeting in all formats. What you will see on the slate, though, is you see some very expensive fighters. 9.6K Aaron Blanchfield, 9.4K Moslar Evloev, and what I assume to be, the salaries aren't out yet at the time of filming this, I assume Damon Jackson should be 9.5K. And with that, you have very interesting matchups because you have these fighters who will be dominant, very favored on the money line, and rightfully so. However, they're decision fighters, and I know that Aaron Blanchfield has an average of 120 points per fight, but she's facing someone in JJ Aldridge who will not be a rollover and who will be able to probably get back up from those takedown attempts. I do think she's very live at 9.6. However, I like her and Evloev in cash. Blanchfield, I think, will garner a lot of attention just because people will see that minus 800 money line, but I don't think she has that same finishing equity as others will. However, my favorite cash target is going to be Moslar Evloev because I do think that is a clear path to victory this weekend against Ige. Ige would just be controlled by Korean Zombie, and where it isn't the most entertaining type of stylistic matchup, I think Evloev can do that maybe even better at this spot here. He's a very good control grappler, and I think that if he takes down Ige, he's probably going to keep him there. On the feet, sure, Ige, lots of power. We know him. He's called 50K for a reason. The dynamic striking he has, but I do think that Evloev has that clear path to victory, and in cash, he's going to score very well doing so. If I want to pick from one of the top three in terms of GBP, I'm taking Damon Jackson. He's facing Guy Argueta, who is making his UFC debut up a weight class, and whereas I do think he has some decent promise, I think Jackson has it covered almost everywhere here. It's kind of unfortunate that you have three favorites who I think all win. I just think that Jackson has the most finishing potential. Argueta, even though undefeated 8-0, he has lost the Ultimate Fighter. We saw him be out-grappled by the pressure style of Ricky Tercios, and he was out-controlled, out-grappled, and I think that Damon Jackson will be able to do all that, except for Damon Jackson's bigger. He's stronger. I think he's a better grappler. And I think he covers Daniel Argueta everywhere here. I think that he lives up to the 9.8K price tag. I think he breaks him down the stretch. I think the only way Argueta wins this fight is by that flash early knockout. With that being said, I'm going to have more Damon Jackson because I do see him winning most of the time, and I see him getting that finish more often than the likes of Evloev and Aaron Blanchfield. But when we're talking about fights that are GPP, that have this high upside, those three names at the top aren't the ones I'm targeting. Instead, on these notes, circled in bold, I have Menifield versus Mosarov, and as you guys all know, I think the whole world will be very high on this fight, and I can't be contrarian here. I can't say otherwise. I think this fight should be targeted in almost all formats. Menifield 8.7, Mosarov 8.5, and if you guys want to know any indication of how this fight's going to go, the fight not to go the distance like minus 700, and that's because Mosarov's a killer to be killed fighter. What you see from him on tape is just this explosive dynamic power that he knocks everybody out early. That's to get some cans on the regional scene. He's going to get a huge step up here against Menifield, and what is seen in those fights with anyone who gives him any resistance at all is Mosarov just gives up. No cardio, no durability in his own right, no ground game, no, let's say, damage tolerance. Mosarov is like round one or bust, which is great for DraftKings because Menifield has been knocked out before. But I think Menifield has him covered here. He has that clear ground advantage. He can take him there if he has to. And if Mosarov faces any resistance, we've seen him to crumble. I think that Alonzo Menifield at 8.7K is the guy to target this week. He is my GPP play. He is my favorite GPP play. A lot of others will probably agree there, but he's a guy I want on my lineups. If you are afraid of that power, I mean, Mozarov is a pretty scary guy. 7.5K, his win condition does score very, very well. Speaking of underdogs with great win conditions, Johnny Munoz Jr., 7.8K, facing Tony Gravely, and this is just a stylistic matchup. Gravely, although maybe one of the best wrestlers in the division, is a wrestler. He wants it on the ground, and in doing so, he has 5 submission losses, which isn't a good look going up against someone in Munoz because Munoz also wants it on the ground. So Gravely's going to give him exactly what he wants. The only difference being Munoz is a very, very credentialed black belt, very, very talented on the ground, and he's going to have all these opportunities to take advantage of Gravely's defensive liabilities because Gravely's going to take it to the ground there. I think if you want to keep it on the feet, Gravely could look very, very good in doing so, but that's just not who he is. He's a wrestler, he's a grappler, and unfortunately that plays into the hands of Johnny Munoz. Johnny Munoz is a GPP play because his upside's a finish. I don't see him as a minute winner. I see him being pretty much not sub or bust, but that's most likely his win equity here. I do think he's able to go out there and target some takedowns at his own rate if he wants to as well, because we've seen Gravely be a better offensive wrestler than defensive. With that being said, I do really like the upside of Munoz because he is probably finish or bust. With that being said though, the other side of that, Tony Gravely, his win condition is wrestling the guy to a decision, and in doing so, he probably scores very well in the process. I mean, he averages 92 fan points, and that's with 2 losses. In his wins, he's averaging around 125. He scores very well in doing so, but he just has that risk of being submitted because his game plan falls into the same way of Munoz. So I'm also targeting this fight. I think that Munoz's win equity scores very well, and for that reason, he's a dog I really like this week. All right, next up, Fakarina versus Mikulitas. This is going to be a fun one. This is another one of those fights I really want to target because you have a guy in Mikulitas who I think is a really good fighter, really talented, but we've seen some durability and some cardio issues on his end. Fakarina 9.2K, and whereas he's making his debut with a lot of question marks around him, getting this step up, everything you see from him on tape looks pretty decent. I mean, decent ground game, knocked out Eric Spicely, so decent power out there. He's just, when he faces an upper echelon division, I don't think he'll do that well, but this matchup kind of looks okay for him because he has that cardio advantage. Mikulitas will probably wear, and I think this is another fight you want to target. I think it's either Fakarina late, taking over on that cardio dump and durability of Mikulitas, or Mikulitas showing him that there's levels to this thing and executing a pretty good game plan in his own right. I think Mikulitas will probably have the striking advantage early on. Even if he goes to the ground where Fakarina usually likes it, Mikulitas got a black belt. I think he's able to defend those submissions early on. It's just what happens later on. We don't know. I think that Fakarina probably scores very well. And for that reason, I think with all the ownership going to those 3 guys you mentioned at the top, Blanchfield, Jackson, and Evloev, that Fakarina is probably going to go a bit overlooked, and for that reason, have some decent opportunities to score very well as well. All right, another pay-up option. I know I've talked about a lot of them. Don't worry, I'll cover some dogs as well, but I'm liking Ade Osborne. 8.9K facing Adeshev, and the advantages are there for Osborne. He has that clear advantage on the ground, the clear reach advantage, and I think that when you have that path to victory so well, I would not be surprised if he goes out there and scores 115 in a first-round submission because Adeshev has difficulty on the ground, and Osborne is a lanky, good grappler. On the feet, though, I think he's not lost. I know he got knocked out by Kopp, but that's not really a bad loss, especially if you're looking at it now. And then you look at him shooting 7 takedowns last time. I mean, if he shoots that same amount of takedowns this time, he wins this fight at a very high clip. Adeshev's a striker with a very weak record because he does have some kickboxing experience, and I think that on the feet it will be competitive, but you have this clear advantage for Osborne. I think his ceiling super high. I kind of like him at this 8.9K price tag. Talk about me liking Munoz with high upside in GPP, Rozenstruik with that high knockout power in GPP, Mozarov in GPP. So who am I playing in cash? Now, to answer that quite simply, I think there's 2 fighters down here who have higher floors than others, and that is going to be Lucas Almeida and Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Starting with Master Z, Zhalgas is another guy with this clear path to victory, or at least it looks like on tape, and now I see Jeff Molina making these improvements, improving that get-up game, improving those grappling positions, improving that takedown defense. But he's getting a step up here, and Zhalgas is a guy who has shown to have decent wrestling, and if you're going to be able to keep him there, who knows, but in getting those takedowns over and over again, you leave yourself with the potential to score very high in the process. Now, I know Zhalgas was just knocked out again by Manuel Kopp. That's 2 guys in a row. I don't hold that against him. I do think he's a decently durable guy. And if you look at the people he's beating, early sub over Rivera, but he lost a split decision to Albazi and then a split decision to Paiva, which I thought he won. This guy has a lot better wins than Jeff Molina does. Jeff Molina is super talented, will probably take over late, but I do think that Zhalgas will be able to withstand this to a decision. I do think that he has decent takedown upside as well to score high, and I think that he has a lot higher of a floor than someone like Adeshev can get finished early. Mikulitas can get finished. Ige can be controlled in his back the whole time. I do think he has decent upside. But another guy with that same thing, though, is going to be Lucas Almeida. Trizano's a guy who's a decision machine, and in doing so, doesn't usually score well. He's my fade of the week up top because at 9.1K, I mean, he's averaging like 60 points and wins, which isn't that good. Lucas Almeida, 100% finish rate. If he wins, it's usually early on. He's getting a huge step up here in Trezano, but I do like what I'm seeing. He has a really well-rounded game plan, really good on the ground, good power on the feet. So I do think that if he wins, he scores very well because he gets that finish. He's a finish guy. With that being said, he also has the higher floor because Trezano's not putting anybody out. He's more of a point fighter in his own right. So Lucas Almeida will probably be able to make it to the cards, worst case scenario, and score around 30-40 points here. I do like his floor a lot better than the other guys I mentioned as well. So Zalgas and Almeida, two guys who I think have better floors than others at the lower end of the echelon. All right, that's going to do it for me here. Let me just round out the rest of the card. Benoit Saint-Denis, we all remember him almost die on live television. I do think he's going a bit overlooked. He's going to have no ownership this week. A lot of people are on Stoltze, or they're gravitating towards the upper guys at the top of the price range, and I see why, but Saint-Denis is going to have takedown upside. Stoltze has horrible takedown defense, and in doing so will be able to score very high. We saw him be able to take a beating or so maybe he'll be able to have a higher floor than the rest as well, and I think it goes overlooked at 8.5K. Silva Botelho, another fight that's got some decent finishing upside, funny enough. Silva, 100% finish rate, facing cans, but is disposing of them really quick, but has cardio issues. I think it's Silva early, Botelho late. I don't mind targeting either one of those either. The fight, however, I don't want to target is the other one next to them, Herrig versus Kovalchuk. I just can't put my money on it. I don't know where they are. Two fighters who have, I think, retired and come back. Herrig with multiple surgeries, fighting on a 3-fight losing skid, and Kovalchuk on a 5-fight losing skid, with her last win being to Felice Herrig. I will lean to Kovalchuk. However, if their hearts aren't in it, I don't want to have my money on it. I do think there's a lot better people at that price range, so I'm going to stay away from that one. And last but not least, De Silva versus Solecki. I know De Silva has been seen for a while. I am leaning Solecki here. I do think he's able to score decent, and another guy is going a bit overlooked, but I just can't give you a solid reason for taking him over Osborne or Menefield. I mean, he's averaging 95 points in a win, and I do think that he's able to secure the win here, especially later on because De Silva has seemed to slow down, but I don't know what I'm getting from De Silva. It's been a while. I think early on De Silva's live. I just think that neither of these guys have the same ceilings as the people around them, so I'm kind of staying away from them as well. All right, that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Kind of a longer breakdown, so I do apologize, but I wanted to make sure I gave you guys everything that I've learned over this 1 week break. Next week, of course, we have UFC 275, absolutely gorgeous card, and I'm ready to make some money on that one. That'll be fun. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel down below and follow me on Twitter at GamblesGore to see what else I have going on this week. By the time this video is out, I will already have posted my current MMA best bets video, which I'll link in the bio down below, as well as my DraftKings breakdown with DFS by the numbers, Monk, and Mr. Uncle Wheezy. So that was fun. Check us out there every Wednesday on PubSport Radio, but I will also be doing, last but not least, I know a lot of stuff going on, I apologize, a full card breakdown, live stream Friday. As always, we'll have some fun doing that, but I've been talking a lot. I'm just gonna leave it there. If you guys wanna know anything else, DMs are always open. Check me out on Twitter at GamblesGordo. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's make some money, guys. Ding.